All right, everybody. So everybody that's in our stream right now, apologies. I will take the blame for this. I had my VPN turned on, which allows me to watch these games, but I forgot to turn it off. It is now off, so hopefully things look better.
Yeah, I think that's helping a little bit. So anyone watching the YouTube video, sorry, you missed the first 10 minutes of banter. Let's go with that. No, not even 10 minutes. The first 4 minutes of banter. Where basically what we establish is it's no longer My Time Monday, it's Margarita Monday, and Felix's birthday is tomorrow, so wish him a happy birthday. The big 2-9. So, yeah, we're going with that.
Okay. So, should we get back into the show?
Yes, let's go.
Should we wait this out a little bit?
Nope, I think we're good to go.
I mean, how are things looking?
It's fine. I don't know what's going on.
Fine. I want great. I want greatness.
I'm apologizing to everyone watching the live stream on YouTube. I'm not quite sure what's going on with it, but it's behind the scenes stuff. We'll figure it out after tonight.
Okay. So, getting into the last week of the Ducks, do you want to start with tonight's game?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so the Ducks lose 3-2. They were coming off a loss to Carolina that snapped their winning streak, and I thought, just as a kind of forward here in that game against Carolina, the Ducks played really well. It was still a really good performance against a team in Carolina that is very good at 5-on-5, that has a ton of talent up front, on the back end, in net, just stacked, up and down the lineup. And the Ducks acquitted themselves nicely. Now, against Nashville, this is a team that, kind of like the Ducks, started off the season struggling at 5-on-5, and just like the Ducks, has also really been trending upward as of late. So this was another measuring stick game for the Ducks after the games that they had last week, which we figured were going to tell us a lot about them as a team. We figured after Washington and Carolina, we had a better understanding of the Ducks as a team. And after the last week of hockey, I actually felt like I'm more sold now on the Ducks being legitimately better this year than they were last year and just improved as a whole. Did tonight's game change anything for you in either direction?
Yeah, I think it pushed me more in the positive direction, to be quite honest. I mean, there are issues with tonight's game, and we'll maybe get into it a little bit more as a full recap. But the Ducks really took some badly timed penalties. Yes, Trevor Zegras took some bad penalties. That's something he needs to crack down on. It's a habit he's kind of had a little bit of late. But kind of looking outside of that and looking for the larger trend, the long-term trend that you can take away from this game. And I think the biggest thing from this game is the Ducks really outplayed the Nashville Predators at 5-on-5. And now, granted, it's not as if the Ducks went out of their way and generated a bunch of chances. They were actually right around average in terms of the amount of expected goals for that a team generates in a game. So they got about normal level of chances, but they were kind of kept to the outside. Nashville did a pretty good job of limiting those chances that the Ducks were able to get. And when the Ducks were able to get them, they weren't able to necessarily capitalize. You think about Trevor Zegras on his breakaway. He wasn't able to put that away. Different things like that where when the Ducks got their chances, they weren't necessarily able to capitalize on them. But I think on the flip side of that is the Ducks were able to actually really keep Nashville at bay for most of the night. Really the only glorious 5-on-5 chance that I can think of. And now, to be completely honest, I was on my commute home during the first period, so didn't catch a whole lot of it. But the only glorious scoring opportunity I can really think of that the Ducks allowed was the Trennan chance late in the third period that ended up being the game-winning goal. Outside of that, I can't really think of any great 5-on-5 chance. I mean, granted, there's the Zegras potential breakaway against that didn't end up becoming anything, so it's not really a chance because there was no shot.
Right.
But so I think the Ducks overall did a really good job in this game of limiting the chances against, and that kind of bears itself out if you look at Evolving Hockey's expected goals model at 5-on or at even strength. 1.88 expected goals for to 0.99 against, and so like I said, 1.88 or I think 1.88 or 2, something in that range is right about league average at 5-on-5. And so really where the Ducks got into trouble was taking penalties and letting Nashville into the game with the power play. And so if you want a big picture takeaway from this game, it's, well, at 5-on-5, the Ducks looked great. And that's something that really is repeatable. And if you want a negative takeaway, it's that the Ducks took too many penalties. And that's something, I mean, from a positive perspective, that's something that can easily be cleaned up. That's an easily fixable mistake. 5-on-5 play is not an easily fixable mistake. And so that's why overall I'm really happy with this game. I think from the process perspective, and just like you and I talked about when the Ducks were on their winning streak, the wins and losses didn't necessarily matter to either of us. It didn't really reveal how the Ducks were playing in either direction. What really mattered was the process. Were they able to get their chances? Were they able to limit the chances of the team against? Timely scoring doesn't really matter for me because this is a process-oriented season for me as a fan. I want to see the Ducks take steps in the right direction to really help their 5-on-5 play. And that's what we saw tonight. And so if I'm going to say during a win that there are things I want to see improve, and that even if the Ducks are on an 8-game winning streak, I think that there are things that they can do better. I think in the same breath, I need to commend them when they're making good decisions in a game that they lose. And so that's what I'm doing right now. Is they played a good game, and this was a really good process game.
Right. And I think that is a very key point, although I do want to just quickly throw in the fact that this season, so tonight, yes, the penalties were, I think, the reason that the Ducks lost, if you're going to pick one thing. But this hasn't been a big issue for them this year.
No.
They're actually third in the league in minor penalties per 60 at 5-on-5. And so like third lowest in the league. So that's a big reversal from what we've seen from them in the past. So tonight is more of just a blip on the radar. And honestly, they took penalties, but the penalty, you're not going to get scored on twice shorthanded either. That's not always going to happen.
And neither of us are necessarily guys that like to complain about the refs. I think that they end up evening out. But I think there were some pretty egregious no calls against
this was a weird one. This
Yeah.
was a weird one in terms of officiating. It felt like there was just no consistency because I don't really care about if a call is soft or if a call is borderline, as long as that is the established standard that's being applied on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely felt at times like the standard was all over the place. But back to what you were saying,
No, go ahead.
Back to what you were saying, though, which I think is a really important point, and this is a good clarifier for people that listen to our podcast, is that we don't really talk about the win-loss record that much. And part of that is because the way that Jake and I look at the game is more so how did the team play? What is happening on the ice, and how does that project moving forward? That is the more important thing to us than just what was the final outcome, who eked out the win on any given night. And, because in the game of hockey, there's a lot of randomness that decides a single game or even 5 games or even 10 games or even 25 games. Like there is a ton of randomness. And so we're trying to suss out what is real and what is not. And if you're just going off of wins and losses, you're more likely to be led astray than if you're looking at like shots, scoring chances, expected goals. These are the things that are going to help you predict more so than just the win-loss total.
Yeah, and I mean, this kind of goes back to what everyone was asking us, right? Everyone kept asking us, I feel like, over the last couple weeks, do you think this winning streak, do you think the winning is sustainable? Do you think it's sustainable? Mm-hmm. And I think this goes to that point of you and I didn't necessarily care about the winning. You and I cared about the process. And so
the process was improving.
Yeah, and I think that the process was improving, and I think at the time, you and I both had the opinion that this is really good. They weren't doing this last year. Now they need to be doing it against teams that are actually good. And here's the thing. This past week, the Ducks had to do that against teams that were actually good. And, I mean, spoiler alert, even though the Ducks went 1-2, they held their own against two really good teams and one average team. But average is still better than what they've dealt with for most of the 8-game winning stretch. And so I think that's definitely something to be commended and something that a lot of Ducks fans should be really happy about and proud about, honestly.
Right, exactly. And I think that a lot of people, like today on the Crash the Pond account, we did an AMA, Ask Me Anything. Well, I did. But, it's our account, so I'm going to throw in the we.
I know. I just don't want my opinions associated with some of the stuff you were throwing out there.
Well, so one of the most common questions I got this from about 4 different people, all in kind of the same phrasing, was, does this winning streak, does the way the season has started, does that change anything for this team? Is that going to change what the front office does at the trade deadline? And I honestly think that how we are viewing this season and how the front office is viewing this season is actually pretty close, pretty in line, where we're not really looking at the wins and the losses. We're not looking at, okay, was there a penalty trouble on one night or missed chances on one? We're looking at how is this thing trending as a whole. That's what's the most important thing for this season. That's what we said before the season. You can go back to our season preview episodes. We talked about this season is not about wins and losses for the Ducks. It's about how is the team playing? Is it establishing an identity? Is there something that's brewing in Anaheim? And so far this season, The answer to that is unequivocally yes. The Ducks are getting better. They are establishing an identity. The coaching has improved. So anyway, that's a lot of positivity right up front, but I think it's true.
I know. And here's the thing: if we're just gonna beat people over the head with positivity after we will be accused many times for being negative.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Well, even when we're positive, Jake, it's still not enough sometimes.
Yeah, but here's the overall positive for me is that not only are is the process trending in the right direction. You're right; they're establishing their identity. The identity that they're establishing is playing very fun hockey. Like, they're playing up and down hockey on the rush, in transition, generating chances. I mean, in tonight's game, really why they were shut down was Nashville did a really good job of defending their line, and the Ducks aren't a team that can necessarily right now generate chances off the forecheck. They're not a team that really likes to get in. They're a team that likes to carry the puck in transition and really open it up. And so if a team is very stout defensively with their neutral zone structure, that's one way that the Ducks are going to struggle a bit. But, I mean, with high-end skill, you're able to break that down a little bit, and we saw that a couple times, the Ducks being able to get their chances because of the higher-end skilled players that they have. And so I think for a positive for this team is that the identity that they're establishing is really fun.
Yeah, and it's not just fun because they are in these crazy games where there's a ton of chances going back and forth. It's not because of that. Like, they're playing sound hockey. They have exciting players, and this is the result. And I do want to point out that the Ducks Twitter account just put out a little homage to Troy Terry, saying, can we get some stick taps for Troy Terry? He had an incredible 16-game point streak. So the Terry point streak has come to an end. And, I mean, this was going to happen at some point. Not too shabby, though. I mean, he's now third all-time in franchise history in terms of point streaks. I guess maybe just a couple minutes on that, just how remarkable that was. And I guess for you, I know that you've always been a huge Terry proponent, as have I. But even for yourself, even as someone who's always been high on him, has anything changed for you, maybe in the positive direction, even further in the last 16 games?
Yeah, I think it definitely has, because I think one of the things I was curious about was, would there be some age-related improvement in his game for scoring specifically? And we're seeing that right now. And so one of the things I was kind of starting to get worried about was he's a guy that was generating chances, really good at 5-on-5, but there are just some guys that are really good at 5-on-5, and even though they're getting looks, they're just not ever able to put it away, not ever able to get the scoring chances due to potentially lower level finishing. And I was starting to wonder, okay, maybe Terry's not this 50, 60 point guy, but maybe he ends up being a 30, 40 point guy. And that still would have been fantastic, especially with the contract that he was on, and fantastic for a fifth round pick.
Rounder.
Like really, really good for what he was. And so I was starting to kind of settle into that he would kind of be a good second, third liner that can pitch in some secondary scoring. And I think what we've seen from this little stint from him is that he's now entering his scoring prime. And as he's entering his scoring prime, I mean, this doesn't seem like it's going to necessarily slow down anytime soon. Because eventually Ryan Getzlaf, I believe, is shooting 0% at 5-on-5.
0.0.
0.0% at 5-on-5. Eventually, that's going to change. I have a hunch to say. I would place a lot of money on the fact that Ryan Getzlaf is not going to shoot 0% all season.
He's shooting more this season.
Yeah.
So that at some point, that's going to start paying off.
Yeah, and eventually...
It's weird, though, because his shots on goal are high this season, but his shot attempts are just kind of average for his career. So
I mean, I wonder how
much
of that
it is.
I mean, I wonder how much of that is potentially getting fed chances by Terry a bit more, and so he's getting cleaner looks that more so are less likely to be blocked. I mean, that's a little bit of conjecture without actually doing any research, so it's just kind of throwing a thought out there.
No, yeah, but I mean, there has to be an explanation.
Yeah.
That could be one, for sure.
And so I think... for Troy Terry, I think that this has been really exciting because I don't think that this is necessarily unsustainable. And I think that's been the most exciting thing was, obviously, when he went on this point streak, the first thought that comes to my head is, crap, he's shooting 30%. People are going to get overhyped on him. People are going to have heightened expectations that he's not going to be able to meet. And then when you look at the numbers and really look at what he's doing and looking at on-ice shooting percentage, no, he's not going to continue to score goals at the rate he is. But the production is very viable, like from him with where he's at and what's going on the ice when he's out there. And I think that's what's exciting. Like, he could be, for the next 3 or 4 years, a 60, 70 point guy.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of bridge the gap of what you were just saying, the reason we bring up Getzlaf shooting 0 is because, yes, Terry, his goal scoring is going to die down, but his line mates just aren't scoring. And so at some point they're going to, and his passes are going to turn into goals on this off of the sticks of his line mates. And so, yeah, I guess that's what's changed for me as well in the last 16 games is that I was kind of right there with you where I thought that Terry is at a minimum going to be an excellent play driver, a guy who, if everything breaks right, is going to pick up some points, maybe 50 to 60 points. And now the way he's played this season, the way all of his stats, even though he's always profiled very well analytically, the fact that the stats have continued to improve, I think the ceiling has gotten higher for him, production-wise at least. And even just from an underlying perspective, he's going to be better than I thought he would ever be. And that is, if you're a Ducks fan, that is
this could
extremely
be the biggest,
exciting.
This could be the biggest steal of a draft pick that the Ducks have had. Like, this could be Martin Madden's crowning achievement, honestly.
Yeah, and look, maybe now this is getting hyperbolic, but if Terry becomes a consistent 60-point, 50 to 70-point range for the next, 5 to 7 years, this is going to be one of the better fifth-round picks of all time.
Yeah.
Just for any team.
Yeah.
Because that is not the kind of value that you're getting in the fifth round.
No.
So, anyway, that's what I've got on the Terry hot streak. Now, do you want to just quickly blow through tonight's game?
Yeah,
still?
So I think let's blow through tonight's game. I think before we get to that, the important, newsworthy items before we get into the game to touch on from the past week are Mason McTavish got sent down to what is it, Peterborough of the OHL?
Peterborough Petes
of the OHL after playing in his 9th game against the Carolina Hurricanes. You and I both discussed that after the game of, well, we'll see what they do with him. And at the end of the day, I think you and I both agree that this is completely the correct decision. He played, 20 games last season? I'll double check that, but I believe he played 20 games overall, through the U18s, through playing over in Switzerland.
Yeah, that's combining regular season and tournament play. Yeah, so that's not a lot of games for a prospect at the stage he's at in his career.
Yeah.
I do. So the thing with McTavish,
sorry, he played 18 games in the regular season and playoffs in Switzerland, and played 11. Let me do this again. Yeah, 17 games, and then played 7 games for the U18s. So what would that be? 24 games in total last season.
Yeah, so he barely played. That is for because at that age, guys are playing a ton of games. Because they're playing for their club teams, they're playing for their international teams, showcases. It's just a ton of hockey. And arguably, it's not that great for their development. But.
In 1920, he played 63 games.
Okay, the 1920s.
Yeah.
For a second, I think you meant the year 1920.
That's
like what?
Yep. In the year 1920.
Yes. Okay. Well, so the thing with McTavish is that you and I'll speak for myself here. I will say that I am generally of the opinion that the best place to develop to become an NHL player is in the NHL. That
Agreed.
being said, there are some conditions on that. I think that for one, you have to demonstrate that you're able to handle it, that you are at least a positive impact player, just to any degree, that it's at least just something that you are thriving in, or not even thriving in, but just getting by-in, right? And I think for McTavish, we were starting to see signs that was not happening. If you look at his stats, you look at the RAPM charts, below break even in just about everything except for on-ice production, which is a lot more volatile, when you're comparing that to shot rates, expected goals rates. And so I think that it was starting to look like maybe this was a little too much, and maybe it wasn't even the fact that it was too much, the fact that he was playing out of position on the wing, on the third line, with a defensive-minded center in Isaac Lundestrom, a defensive-minded winger in Jakob Silfverberg. Maybe this just wasn't the right fit. So what could the Ducks have done differently? Dallas Eakins brought this up in his availability that, well, we just can't get him any reps at center. It's just impossible right now. And I want to push back on that notion a little bit, because is it that important for Derek Grant or Sam Steele or whoever the fourth line center is going to be? Is it that important that those guys get those minutes as opposed to Mason McTavish? Also, are they playing that much better to warrant McTavish not playing in his position, because yes, McTavish has struggled. I don't think he was that good in his stint, but still better than Derek Grant, still better than Sam Steele. So I guess my question is, why was it just this foregone conclusion that McTavish could not play center on this team?
And here's the other counter, or the other kind of opinion that I have there that I think kind of really follows up your thought process here, which is that if not, like, when is there going to be space for him? Because you now, Ryan Getzlaf, with the way he's playing, 2 or 3 more years, maybe? Maybe I'm being optimistic there. Who knows?
At least, let's go with at least one more good one.
Yeah. One more good one. And so maybe that works out perfectly with when Ryan Getzlaf retires, that's when Mason McTavish comes back. Well, what happens if that's not the case? What if Getzlaf plays one more year and that's when McTavish is here? Are you going to specifically hamstring McTavish and not play him? Or what are you going to do? So I get it is a future problem, and that's probably how Dallas Eakins is viewing it, is that that's a future Ducks problem. That's not a me problem. But when is there going to be the right time for him to play center?
Yeah, and this is the struggle, I think, of the Ducks management situation this season, is that if this season is truly about the future and about the rebuild, then you would think that a guy like McTavish, you'd prioritize seeing what he can do at his natural position for a short stint, as opposed to prioritizing a Sam Steele and a Derek Grant at fourth line center, right? It just stands to reason that you would rather, because you're keeping McTavish on your team for 9 games anyway. And sure, there is still a benefit to that. He's still getting a taste of the NHL, but you didn't draft him to be a winger. You didn't draft him to be on a third line in a defensive role. Just give him a line that he can center and see what he can do with it.
And we saw it with Trevor Zegras last year. I mean, look at how he looked on wing versus how he looked when he came up as center. He looked dominant at center. And I don't think that necessarily 10 games, or was it? I don't think it was even 10 games. It was like 5 or 6 games in the AHL at center made him this overall confident player. I just think it's this guy. He's playing his natural position. It's the position he's comfortable in. And the thing with McTavish is there were a couple of plays that he made that made you look at him as being like, oh, he's like a center. Because there was one defensive zone breakout that I remember specifically where he was able to corral the puck after it was bouncing, make a really nice move in the D zone to be able to corral the puck, turn with it all in one motion, get it up the ice, and then transition out of the zone and break it out with a pass. And that was a center play. Like, that's not a play that a winger makes. A winger makes it on the board, they get it on their stick, tip it off the board, and gets out. McTavish got it on a stick, wanted to transition the puck into offense. And so I think if you're looking for signs of positive signs from Mason McTavish, that's one. And that was a center play. And so that's why you send him back. And so I think you and I both agree that overall for his development, this is the right decision if they have the mindset that they do, which obviously they do. So I think this is the right move.
Right, exactly. And that's so despite like everything I'm just saying, I still agree with the decision because it was clear that their thought process was not going to lead to him getting this great opportunity in the NHL. He was playing out of position. It wasn't going that well. So really, it just felt like he wasn't getting much out of this experience anymore. He got his cup of coffee. He's got the 9 games, got to go through a training camp. You know, I think those are all good things. Those are all positive things for a guy's confidence, for a guy's long-term development, but it just didn't seem like it was really serving him anymore.
Yeah.
And it looked like the Ducks were not going to give him any further opportunity to kind of be optimized in the lineup. So all in all, I think it's probably he's better off in junior. And again, this is not usually the tact that I take in these situations, but I think just the writing on the wall with McTavish just makes more sense to have him go play his actual position.
Yep.
And just light it up for another year. Now, to your point about the center depth, I don't know what will happen there.
Yeah. Real quick, by the way, backtracking slightly on Troy Terry, one thing I wanted to briefly mention to kind of course correct something that I had mentioned on previous episodes, because, you know, when you're wrong or when new information comes out, it's important to correct yourself and get the right information out there. Frank Saravelli reported on when speaking about Troy Terry that the long list, the information put out about that long list was kind of actually reported incorrectly. They can modify the long list whenever. It's all about just getting testing information to the IOC in time. And so they can basically make those changes whenever they want to their long list. So even though Troy Terry, which Frank Saravelli kind of says is not on the long list and won't be on or wasn't on the long list to start, you can pretty much guarantee that. That's not to say that they can't add him to it. So that's something where Troy Terry fans out there that want to see him on the Olympic team, it's still a real possibility.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is I'm glad you pointed that out because I was based on the information you had given us on this podcast, I thought there was no chance of Troy Terry being on the Olympic team. And there was actually a really good article today on ESPN written by, I don't want to get her name wrong, Kristen, one of the two.
Shilton?
Kristen Sheldon. Yeah, she wrote a great article about just like a profile on Terry this season and the run that he's had. And she asked him about the Olympic team, and you could just tell, like, this is all in written. This isn't even audio. You could just tell by what he was saying, the fact that this would be an honor for him, that it would just be amazing. You can tell that if he is going to make that team, that it will be, I mean, one of the honors of his lifetime. To not just because, he's already been on an Olympic team, but to be on the one with NHL players, right? That is just a different type of situation, and what a thrill that would be. So.
Yep. And so,
anyway,
the other piece of news was Max Comtois. It was announced that he will be out for 6 weeks after having surgery on his right hand for removal of a small bone. So I was trying to remember back. I believe the first game that he was scratched fully, and I think Elliot Tieford has reported that he left kind of practice early with potentially an injury in his hand or something along those lines. I believe that was last weekend. So not this past weekend, but the weekend before.
Well, so
Dallas Aikens
has had to answer questions about this, and he mentioned that this has been a lingering thing for Comtois. Not specifically the bone, but when asked about being out of the lineup, being asked about him leaving practice early, he did mention the fact that this has been something that's been bugging Comtois for a while now. So it would appear that whatever this situation is with his hand, it's not something that just fell out of the sky, that he's been dealing with this. Now, the natural question is, well, he's been playing with an injury. Doesn't it make sense that he hasn't been producing? And it's tough to say because, A, we still don't know how long this has been going on, regardless of the fact that Aikens said that it's been lingering. We don't know how long that means. Does that mean a couple of weeks? Does that mean the entire season?
He tried to
Does
get
that
in a
mean
fight
going
with,
back to last year?
He tried to get in a fight with Jeremy Lozon, and I don't think any punches were fully thrown, but I think that was the last game he played. And so, I mean, maybe it's a little bit of digging into it too much, but the last game he played in, he tried to get in a fight, and then he has a hand injury. I mean, maybe that's making too much of a direct connection, but it wouldn't shock me, right?
I love the fact that not only did you bring that up, but you noted the fact that no punches were actually landed or thrown or whatever.
It's because I put that. I think someone in Discord mentioned that. I was like, oh yeah, that's true. It was because it wasn't a fight. They didn't get fighting majors. They got roughing majors. It was after Lundestrom got hit in the head.
That's the kind of attention to detail you get with Crash the Pond, folks.
There you go.
So yeah, I mean that, like, I'm looking at my hands right now and I'm thinking, okay, if I had a bone floating around in one of these, like, would that be good? No, it wouldn't be. It would probably be really annoying. But the thing is, and this is a good point. Like, what does that mean that he has a bone that got removed? Like, was the bone fragmented? What actually happened there with that hand? We don't know. Doesn't totally matter. The point is that he's out. The other point is that I don't think that just explains away what his season has been so far. I think you could say maybe that's why he's been more reluctant to shoot at times. You could say maybe that's why he's had a harder time finishing because that's where your hand comes into play. But you've still got your legs, you've still got both your arms. I mean, you've still got your other hand. Like, he has been just about the same player he has been last year. Now, maybe the argument you can make is that because of the injury, that has kept him back from taking a step further, that he hasn't been able to make the Terry leap because he's been dealing with that. So maybe now, being out 4 to 6 weeks, I think is the timeline. Maybe now, once he comes back with that out of the way, he can play and just take that step forward. That is the hope if you're a Ducks fan right now.
Yep.
So
yep, that definitely is.
But I mean, did that change anything for your perception?
No, because we saw this
that he got injured.
We saw this with the underlying numbers for him, that his underlying numbers were the same. And so, I mean, maybe if this is something that has been lingering, because we don't necessarily know, like, who knows if Dallas Aikens is telling
lingering,
us the truth.
Well, what does lingering mean, though?
Like, is that something from the beginning of the season or not? If it's from the beginning of the season, maybe that's a reason why he's still getting himself into the same location, same shots, same locations for all of his chances, and maybe that does impact your finishing. The real question is, when did this happen, and how long has he been dealing with it? And so, kind of with all that being said, anything else you want to add before we start getting into some of the recaps? I actually think we should start with the first game of the week.
Well, I do want to say, though, with Comtois, with him being out now, the Ducks had to call up Gru and Letary. And so, and I mean, we'll get to this eventually, but Henrique getting hurt tonight against Nashville, we don't know how that's going to shake out yet.
Jacob
Kell coming back. Well, that's the thing, right? Like they're getting down to their last forwards here that they can call up and just have as healthy scratches. Like at some point, someone they call up is going to have to actually play. And I am really wondering if, yes, will it be Jacob Perreault? Because he is hot right now. And at some point, they're just going to have to call him up if these injuries keep piling up.
Yep. So before we get into the games from the past week, now that we've kind of dove into the news, given you all that stuff, let's have a bit of a word from our sponsor. So today's episode is brought to you by Green Chef. So Green Chef has a meal plan for every healthy lifestyle, keto, paleo, plant-powered diets, or even if you want to just have a delicious but balanced dishes. Green Chef's expert chefs curate every recipe with over 30 meal choices every week, and the flexibility to switch plans. You'll never have to sacrifice taste for nutrition. You can enjoy restaurant quality dishes in the comfort of your own home. You can enjoy new and nutritious recipes each week that are perfect for you and the whole family. You can take homemade plant-based meals to the next level with Green Chef's plant-powered options, or want to watch your carb intake? Their keto and paleo options will give you the premium proteins and vital veggies you need to conquer your day. And with the pre-portioned, easy-to-follow recipes, yep, they are definitely pre-portioned, easy to follow, can definitely confirm that part of it. If you're not the best chef in the world, they make your life easy with everything they send you. So eating well has never been simpler, and you never have to worry about having to plan or shop for dinner again. Green Chef's the first USDA-certified organic meal kit, so you can enjoy hand-picked organic veggies, premium proteins without having to worry about where they came from. So Felix, Green Chef has been kind enough to send us some meals, right? And they've all been fantastic. I've mentioned this so many times, right? My wife has loved them so much where she's legitimately, and I don't have the binder with me, but she has legitimately put those meals into a binder with the recipes for them so we can recreate them. And just for an idea for some recipes, I mean, this is what's on their daily menu right now. So if you were to take our code, which is CTP or 125 CTP for $125 off plus free shipping, you could use that to be able to get meals like this, Felix. Steak and butternut squash salad. You can get chicken souvlaki. You can get beef and sweet potato taco skillet. That beef and sweet potato taco skillet actually looks
yummy,
really, really good. Pork with balsamic fig sauce. They're all really, really good. I mean, Felix, tell me
and
about
all their
some of your
dishes
favorites.
are really. Well, that's the thing. So if you look through all the different selections, I really enjoyed the chicken and creamy zucchini noodles. Super delicious. The thing with their dishes is that they're all really colorful. So I mean, this sounds really kind of like out there, but the fact for a lot of like these meal prep or meal delivery companies, you get your meal and it's just the standard rice, chicken, broccoli, what have you. They make sure that it's presentable, that you've got all these different veggies, that you've got all these different colors to make eating healthy, to make getting fit, to make getting into shape, make it less of a drag. And I think that is a big, big reason to hop onto the Green Chef train while you can.
Yep. And apologies, the code is CTP125. Actually. So, you can go to greenchef.com/CTP125 and use the code CTP125 to get $125 off. Yeah, you heard that right. $125 off, including free shipping. Once again, that's greenchef.com/CTP125, like Crash the Pond, and $125, and use the code CTP125 to get $125 off, including free shipping. Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well. Thank you so much, Green Chef.
There you go, folks. I want to point out, this is now completely unrelated. Jake is rocking the stash pretty hard here.
It's Movember.
You've got the full shave. I will give you some critique here though. The soul patch is a bit of a cop out to me. Like you can't claim full stash if you've got any other facial hair.
Let's just say this. I am married and I would like to stay married. And legitimately after I shaved, My wife said to me, the redeeming factor about your mustache is that the soul patch is there, so it doesn't look completely horrible.
Oh, that is one of my favorite things that's ever been said on the show. Thank you for that. Okay, well, hey, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you here, at least not while we're recording. Okay, let's. And now my turn to tickle Jake there. Okay, let's talk about the games from the last week.
So I say we start with the first game of the week. I mean, we're this far in. Let's save the game we just watched for last.
I think we got to give up on the recap for Nashville for now. We will get to it. Don't worry. So Washington, Carolina, Nashville, I believe is the slate.
Correct.
If I'm not mistaken. Okay.
That is correct.
So one big thing you could say happened against Washington, and that would be Ryan Getzlaf hitting 1,000 points. So, yes. Jake, let me ask you this. Yeah. First off, what was your reaction to that? Because it happened very early in the game, which I think is kind of fitting for Ryan Getzlaf. Just get it out of the way. But also what did that mean to you? The fact that you've now witnessed, as a Ducks fan, the entirety of his career, the fact that he's made it to this point, and I'm sure that you'll probably be speaking for a lot of fans here as well. What did that moment mean to you?
I feel old.
Come on, really? You're going to go there? I'm turning 29, and you're going to remind me of that?
Yeah. No, I think it was a really cool moment. I think it was one of those moments, seeing the benches clear, seeing how much it meant not only to Getzlaf but to all of his teammates. I think that's what really made it a bit emotional for me. Was obviously this is an insanely big accomplishment for him. I mean, there's only so many. I think it's like under 100 people in NHL history that have 1,000 points. So this is a big deal to hit 1,000 points, especially for him to do it with one franchise. And I think for it to happen with Cam Fowler scoring the goal, Troy Terry to get the assist. I mean, Troy Terry said it afterwards. By the way, quick side note, Troy Terry's become one of the best interviews on the Ducks. Just wanted to briefly point
he
that
always
out.
has been.
Yeah, but
this is just like
but they're doing it more and more because he's scoring a bunch. Like they've said, it's Terry time.
Common crashed upon reply to anything positive about Troy Terry. Oh, it's always been like that.
True.
Because it's true.
Yeah. But regardless, the fact that Troy Terry got the secondary assist, Getzlaf got the primary assist, and Fowler got got the goal, like, what more can you say? I mean, Cam Fowler is potentially going to be one of the second longest tenured players in Ducks history. I mean, he's played a long time for this franchise. I'm curious. Actually, now I'm going to do a quick look at it once I'm done with this little point that I'm making. But it overall felt really, really good. And I think it was really cool. And the fact that it happened when, again, in a game against Ovechkin, kind of some history there. Ovechkin scored his first NHL hat trick.
Don't forget Daniel Sprong. Don't forget Daniel Sprong.
I was more saying the fact because I think Ovechkin scored his first hat trick in Honda Center. And so it felt like it was kind of these two guys from this past generation kind of really holding on in a good way, and Ovechkin still scoring goals, trying to chase Gretzky, and then you have Getzlaf here still holding on, having a fantastic year. And so I think there was a whole lot to it. This game overall, we'll get into it a little bit more. This game overall felt like a real big passing of the torch game in a really fun way.
Well, yeah, and so, yeah, I guess we shouldn't mention that Getzlaf and Ovechkin got drafted a year apart.
Yeah,
so
but their first season was the same.
Yeah, exactly. So they're kind of their careers, you can directly compare them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, the big story though for this game is the fact that after the Capitals came back to tie it in the third period, you had Troy Terry get on the board from a really nice feed from Sonny Milano, a nice little saucer pass right into the lane, just drops it in for Zegras, who then comes in and scores. And then the Capitals come back, they tie it, they make it 2-2. And in overtime, Jake, I mean, maybe the most exciting play of the season for the Ducks so far. Actually, definitely the most exciting play of the season for the Ducks thus far. Trevor Zegras comes in on the right wing. He's a left-handed shot, kind of just places the puck into the middle of the rink and then skates onto it, fires it against the grain, top right, and just goes perfectly into the net. He skates off, the crowd goes wild, and then he tosses his stick into the audience. I mean, it's just one of those moments that I think if you're a Ducks fan, if you're watching this game, if you're someone who's followed Trevor Zegras, if you're just a hockey fan, that's something that you're going to remember for a long time because it was
Yeah,
a very exciting
like
moment.
you could maybe nitpick this game. I mean, we obviously have with the fact of Deloria and all that fun stuff that we've
Well,
done in the past.
let's focus on the good.
No, I know. I was about to do that. I was actually
Yeah.
going to say you can do that, but I think that this game is one where I personally just want to overlook that because of how much I think there are certain games throughout a season that you can look back on, and they're games that you will remember. And
Yep.
so I think there are statistical things that you can look at from them, but I don't
Sure.
think, and I think that this is a little bit of a completely other side of the of kind of the argument that we typically make. But I think there are certain things to making memories for fans, and I think that is important with this being an entertainment industry.
Because
so
that's what, exactly.
that's what this is all about
at the end of the day.
And so I think that there are games that will be like that. And last year, the game that comes to mind was, I can't even remember who they were playing, to be honest, but it was Drysdale's first game where he scores, and then Zegras scores that goal right afterwards, and they end up winning that game.
Was it
in
Arizona?
overtime. Maybe it might have been, but still, like, I don't even remember the opponent, but I can remember those goals and kind of how that game flow was. And these are these memories that you have, and that's how this game felt like this. And that's why kind of on Twitter, I said this felt like a proverbial passing of the torch. You have this wonderful moment in Ryan Getzlaf getting his 1,000th point. Then you have Trevor Zegras scoring to be able to make it 2-1 game, and then they end up allowing Washington to come back and tie it, and it be a 2-2. And then you see Zegras on the ice at 3-on-3, and honestly, that wasn't the best 3-on-3 the Ducks have played, or just the most entertaining one. It was a very slow one, I felt, overall, one that really never felt like it got its legs until kind of the last little bit. And then Zegras got the puck, and he's kind of enters the zone. And you just kind of feel like something special is going to happen when the puck's on his stick. And that's honestly how I feel anytime the puck's on his stick, to be honest. Just you feel like something's about to happen. And you see him curl with the puck, and then you end up he shoots and goes in. And it felt like a moment, and that turns out to be the 1,000th win in franchise history. Getzlaf's 1,000th point. It felt like Zegras' coming out party, and he goes on to now have another point in tonight's game. But that was 5 points in 2 games for him, and he had played 9 minutes in both those games. It's like it just felt like a coming out party, and you had Dmitry Filipovich tweeting about it. It felt like the Ducks were the talk of the town after that, and it just really felt like this overall really good and cool moment. And now, granted, there's going to be highs and lows in the season, but those are the types of moments that can make fans. And I think that's important to have. And there haven't been a whole lot of those over the last couple of years. And so I think that as a fan, it was really nice to see that type of game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that with our show, we pride ourselves on being these objective commentators, right? Where we're diving into the numbers and trying to suss out what's important and what's not. But we can't lose sight of the fact that, like you said, this is an entertainment product, that this is about the fans, that this is about making memories at the end of the, that's what ultimately this is all about. And like the last couple of years, you did point out the Trevor Zegras first NHL goal against Arizona, and yeah, that was memorable, but there haven't been a lot of those for the Ducks. And that's hurt their brand. That's hurt their standing league-wide. Like you said, people tweeting about that, people talking about it. And so the fact that Zegras did that, the fact that it happened on the night Getzlaf got his 1,000th point, it was one of the more memorable games I've watched the Ducks play in the time that I've been watching them, which is now going on, I don't know, close to 10 years now. So yeah, it was just a cool moment. Like you said, passing of the torch, the fact that Getzlaf gets his 1,000th to start the game, and then Zegras essentially closes out the game. The thing with Zegras is that despite the fact that you and I agree he has played well this season and he has been one of their better players, and his mere presence on the roster is one of the reasons that they've been able to turn this corner, he hadn't really had that moment yet. He hadn't really had that moment where you just saw it all come together, the skill, the personality, a moment in time in the specific game where the game was really hinging. It just all came together.
He felt like a superstar in that
overtime.
moment.
Exactly. He felt like an absolute star. And I think now, look, since that time, he's played well, but those are the keystone moments that really kind of make careers. And I think, look, you saw it, like, for example, another American star, Austin Matthews, that first game he played.
The 4-goal game, yeah.
Exactly. Everyone remembers that. And for Trevor Zegras, like, I'm not trying to compare the two players specifically, but that was his moment in that way, where it's just something that everyone's going to remember.
Well, and the misconduct was so dumb, But that let's celebrate that celebration instead of hand wringing about the misconduct because it's dumb. Like that celebration's so damn cool. Like obviously, and he even said this afterwards. So for those of you that don't know, earlier on in the season, with the Devils ended up winning a game in overtime. Jack Hughes scores the overtime winner against the Chicago Blackhawks with a sick move, and he's basically skating down the boards and tosses his stick into the crowd. And there was actually an interview with him. I believe it was Sean Gentili and Craig Custance with The Athletic did an interview with Jack Hughes about it, and he kind of asked, he's like, "Was I allowed to do that?" And there was no penalty, which rightfully so, there shouldn't be. And then I'm wondering if maybe there was a memo put out. Who knows? But basically, Zegras after the game is interviewed about it, and he said, "Yeah, he's like, Jack's hurt right now. I wanted to do that to put a smile on his face." And it's like, that's so cool. And like, I don't know. It's just such a swaggy move to be able to do that. It's a bat flip. Like, let's be real. It's like having a bat flip after a walk-off home run in baseball. Like, it's just like there's nothing the other team can do, and you're just like stunting on them. As our good friend CJ has put with his meme, basically.
Yes, exactly. And just a very cool moment. And, I mean, definitely for, like, the younger fans, kids that are getting into the sport or that want to get to Trevor Zegras' spot one day, like, that's the kind of stuff that motivates you.
Speaking of guys with personality, real quick, did you see the passage of Dab?
The Dab? I haven't actually seen it yet, but I've seen enough people talk about it to where I feel like I know what happened.
When this team has him and Zegras playing together, oh boy.
Yeah, he is absolutely torching the OHL.
I just more meant the personality the team's going to have, but yeah.
Well, I know, but he's also playing, I mean, he's dabbing because he can get away with it right now. And it's some, I mean, we'll get to it at some point, but yeah, he's playing well. Okay, anything else on the Washington game?
No, I think that kind of covers it. I mean, I don't really want to get into the numbers too much because this was just a memorable game.
That was a narrative game, streak game.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yep, exactly.
Every once in a while. And then, so with the Ducks win streak on the line, they would take that Thursday against Carolina at Honda Center. And this was a game, again, where I thought that the Ducks, had an opportunity to win. I mean, the Hurricanes would come out to take the lead. Troy Terry would tie it. He picks up his 12th goal of the season, extends his point streak, and ultimately would be the last game in that streak. And then the Hurricanes end up pulling away in the third period. I didn't think, personally, that the Ducks played that well in the third period. I thought that the Carolina Hurricanes really imposed their will, but that's going to happen, right? Yeah. Like we have to make sure that we are keeping our radar correct here. Like the Ducks are improved, but the Carolina Hurricanes are one of the best 5-on-5 teams in the league with a ton of talent. Like we cannot be upset, or I guess we can't be too critical of the fact that at some point or another that fact came to bear.
Yeah.
That the better team looked better.
Definitely. I think you're spot on there. I think overall the Ducks sitting at 48.16 expected goals for percentage in that game at 5-on-5. Like that's a big win for this team. Like to even be that tight to the Hurricanes is impressive. But I think you're spot on there that if you want to find something to critique in this game because they did lose, I think the thing to critique is maybe the last 10 minutes of the game after the Ducks allowed the goal against. I mean, there's obviously always the critique that Nick Deslauriers be on Trevor Zegras' line is a poor decision because it's going to limit offensive ability that specifically led to the second goal against with Deslauriers taking himself out of position to be able to try to make it.
Shattenkirk also.
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I was about to say that.
On that goal.
Shattenkirk got walked. It wasn't a good play by him, but that all gets stopped if Deslauriers doesn't go out of his way to try to play the body. Instead, he makes a play on the puck. Like that's the issue with Nick Deslauriers there is he goes out of his way to play the body, and that puts yourself in a bad position to do that. And so, I mean, here's the thing. You and I neither of us think Nick Deslauriers is that great of a hockey player in terms of the NHL. I think we both would agree that if you're going to play him, it should be on a fourth line, but you and I both agree probably shouldn't be there. There's no way in hell he should ever be on a second line in the NHL, though. Like, that just shouldn't be a thing.
Well, the problem is he's taking too much value off the table offensively.
Yeah.
Right? Because the whole thing with him is that he's defensively responsible, and that does bear itself out in the numbers, so you have to give him credit for that.
Yep, agreed.
The problem is, in your top six, that's not what you're trying to achieve. You're trying to get points on the board. You're trying to score. You're trying to drive play in the other direction, and you've got to find a way to optimize that process. And with Deslauriers, the thing is, for all his value defensively, he's a zero offensively, like an absolute zero, and that kind of nullifies his value defensively.
And the argument that came out that he plays physical, he drives the front of the net, that driving the front of the net wasn't actually true. Like, there was a play, I think it was in the Capitals game, where Zegras kind of throws it to the front of the net, and Deslauriers is like between the face-off dots getting ready to play defense instead of driving front net.
Yeah, so I tweeted that clip, and I think people took that as me trying to critique Deslauriers, and what I was trying to say is just like that line isn't working. Like, none of them are on the same page. Like Milano is below the goal line, Deslauriers is fading away, Zegras is spinning, trying to get in the middle, which I think is the correct play there. But to your point, it's just like his instincts it doesn't gel with a guy like Zegras, who's just so high level.
Yep.
And the thing with Deslauriers as well, like, it's something that we don't really talk about as much because it's a little harder to quantify in the sport, but puck skill. Like, the fact that when the puck gets onto his stick, nothing happens. Like, he's either going to dump it in, he might try like one little move to get around his defender, or he'll just throw it on net. But when you're playing with a high-level guy like Zegras and Milano, who's also a good playmaker, you need to be able to keep up. You need to be able to keep the chains moving, and Deslauriers is just not that. And that's the problem.
This game, I'm going to provide some more analytics and some more deep information for people out there. I was looking at Corey Schneider's tracking data, and he's tracked, I think, actually a decent amount of Ducks games. I think it's like over 200 minutes that he's tracked so far in terms of games, so a couple games at least. And one of the things that stuck out to me was Trevor Zegras loves to enter the puck with the zone, or enter the zone with the puck on his stick, and tries to create chances off of that. Nick Deslauriers, on the other hand, loves to dump the puck in. That likes to make that safe play. Puck's on a stick in the neutral zone, get it in deep. Get it in on the forecheck. Trevor's the issue there is that when Deslauriers dumps it in, it doesn't usually create chances. It usually doesn't ever end up on the Ducks' stick after the fact. And I think that's the issue there, especially when you're playing with Trevor Zegras, who, quite frankly, Zegras and Milano, they can be dangerous on the forecheck if turnovers happen, but they're not meant to get in on the forecheck. They're meant to enter the zone with possession, and then if the puck turns over, they can get in on it, but they're not really guys that want to have the puck dumped in and then chase it. That's not their game. That's not what they do. And so I think from that perspective, it just, they're really, like you said, it doesn't mesh in terms of what they want to do, and it didn't really relate or create chances after the fact. And so I think we saw that with that line, and we saw that and we saw that as to why Dallas Eakins, when push came to shove, when the Ducks were actually trailing the game, having to chase it, he took Nick Deslauriers off that line. And I think Dallas does deserve credit for doing that, but I think that if you're doing...
he's Dallas now.
Dallas Eakins, whatever. However we want to say
it. Jake has definitely taken a bit of a turn on Eakins lately. I've been seeing a lot more praise, and now he's Dallas.
Well, he does. But he does deserve. Like, I'll give him more praise when we get to tonight's game.
I agree with you. By the way, I just think it's funny.
Yeah, and so he deserves praise for making that change. Now, granted, that change should have happened earlier or prior to that. Because I think the issue that ended up happening was it was almost too little, too late. The Ducks were a little bit hemmed in their zone in the Carolina game. As a result of that, there wasn't necessarily chemistry because the guys hadn't played together. So there was really it was a little bit all over the place for the Ducks in that last little bit. And I think that really hamstrung them. And I think the other thing that I think I wanted to bring up on the Carolina game is the power play. And you and I brought this up.
Right. Well, this was the Lindholm gate.
Correct. So Hampus Lindholm had been on the power play basically the past couple weeks. Jamie Drysdale had not been on the power play for a while. While looking at Corey Schneider's data, basically Hampus Lindholm, all he does on the power play is shoot the puck, which some people may see that and be like, oh, that's a good thing. But he shoots the puck.
If you've got an elite shot, it's great.
Yeah, but
if you're Hampus Lindholm.
Yes, he shoots the puck more than he passes it on the power play. And the issue for the Ducks is that Hampus Lindholm shouldn't be shooting on the power play because he's shooting it from the point. It hits legs. It doesn't really find its way in, and it's just a low danger chance. Whereas on a power play, you want to be looking for that high quality chance. You want to be moving the puck. The guy at the point, the modern day power play is not relying on a point shot anymore. It's all about distributing the puck, working it around, taking advantage of the fact that you have the extra man, and looking for that good opportunity. And by having Lindholm just fire it with a quick little wrist shot from the point, that's not necessarily going towards that point. It's just kind of giving the other team the puck. And so I think that this game really made that apparent because the Ducks really weren't able to capitalize on their power play. And I mean, in addition to that, it was also weird. They had Getzlaf, Zegras, Lindholm, Silverberg, and I can't remember who was the other person on that power play unit.
I think McTavish was out there.
Yeah. McTavish was. So it was just odd. It was like it was a weird mishmash, and it felt like they were trying to not load up one unit to make the other suffer. And so,
I was just gonna say that the thing with power plays in the NHL is that the volume, it actually becomes more quality over quantity when you're on the power play.
Yep.
Just getting pucks on net, just getting shots on from the point with some traffic there's not a ton of virtue in that always, at least. Like sometimes, if there's a ton of traffic, you get the deflection, great. But if you watch the shifts for Lindholm in that game, it's kind of maddening because he gets the puck at the point and he has the opportunity to hit it back to one of the guys in the flanks. Like, for example, there was a play where he gets it back to the point. Zegras is wide open at the top of the left circle. And if you can get it back to him, there's no pressure on him. He can then bring it in and either get a shot on net from closer, or the guy in the slot that's net front pops back out into the high slot and he can get it into the slot. Zegras can pass it in, a centering pass, and then you have a great chance. That's more dangerous. But instead, Lindholm kind of drags his defender in, tries to lull him to sleep, and then just gets it on net. It misses. It just doesn't go anywhere, right? And so when you're that point man on the power play, you have to really have a keen understanding of, okay, what is the priority here? And maybe that's what he's being told by the coaching staff, like just get it on net. But the reality is that is it's just a low value play. The expected value on a point shot like that, it's not optimal. And so that's why it's funny. You saw tonight, though, against Nashville with Kell back, Lindholm was no longer in the power play.
Nope.
So maybe this is like it's a five-man unit thing.
No, it felt like they actually made changes because they went the first unit was, what was it? It was Zegras, Getzlaf, Milano, Raquel, Drysdale.
Yeah, and they look good.
Yeah.
I thought that they looked a lot better.
The only tweak I might make there is I might do Terry for Raquel, but I don't hate, like, either way, it's fine.
I mean, those are four of your best offensive players.
Either way, it's
and
fine.
Then Drysdale. Yeah, and the thing with Drysdale that I notice is that because he's such a good skater, because he's so aggressive off of the blue line, he's more willing to pinch up. He's more willing to carry the puck in and look for that centering pass as opposed to just fling it on net from the blue line. And that
he's a facilitator on the power play as compared to a guy that's looking to shoot it.
Exactly. I think he just has a better understanding of what is trying to be accomplished.
Yeah.
Just a better offensive instinct. And like the thing with Lindholm, it's nothing against him. Like that's just not the role he should be playing.
It felt like they were almost trying to force it. Almost is maybe this is getting too overthinking it, but maybe trying to increase his value.
Yes. There you go. You stumbled into it.
But
yeah,
I don't know. Let's get into tonight's game, though. The Ducks ended up losing to the Predators. We briefly talked about the process, much better in tonight's game. And really the only issue, like we said, was the penalty kill. I think if you want to get into an issue with the game, obviously Adam Henrique getting hurt. That really hurt them.
Yeah, that's possibly the single biggest thing to come out of this game, if it proves to be a significant injury, is the fact that you lose Henrique, you're already down Comtois. Like like we were talking about earlier, you're gonna have to call up someone else from the AHL, or do you just put one of Lettieri and Grew in the lineup and then have another guy in the press box? Now your lineup isn't. I mean, you're in trouble at that point.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. I don't know what they do with the top line. It's just gonna be tough.
Okay, let's just go on this tangent real quick on Jacob Perreault, because I think.
Well, I just want. I just want to ask you this question though: if Henrique is out for a while, what do you do?
I call up Jacob Perreault.
Well, okay. Let me ask you this. Let me put this a different way.
Okay.
Let's say that Perreault is not an option, and that they just call up another guy who they are just comfortable scratching every game, and that one of Grew or Lettieri are going to be in. How do you configure the top six? Because I just think you can't have one of the bottom six guys in there.
I think you move Jacob Silverberg up.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say as well. I think you work Silverberg into that top six. You keep the Raquel, Milano, Zegras line intact. You put Silverberg with Terry and Getzlaf, and then you just have it basically an AHL bottom six.
It is. I mean, it is what it is. Injuries happen.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. Here's going to be the real question. And this is one thing that hasn't necessarily been talked about enough with Jacob Perreault. And you and I both said that the ELC slide doesn't matter as much as people make it out to. but it does still hold some weight.
It's a factor.
It's a factor. It's one that you and I think doesn't matter as much as it's made out to be, but obviously it's a factor. I mean, there's a reason why Mason McTavish in some ways was sent down.
Yes.
But Jacob Perreault, the ELC slide still does apply to him. Like, just because he's playing in the AHL, that doesn't mean he is this counts as a year off his ELC. This does not.
The only reason he's in the AHL anyway is because of
last year.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyone who play, and this the reason why I bring this up is if guys play over in Europe prior to and don't play in junior, they can actually go straight to the AHL at 18. And the ELC slides still do apply when that happens. So like Hampus Lindholm came over early and went to the AHL and played a full season there. It didn't count as a year off his ELC because it's 10 NHL games. So the AHL does not count to that. So for Jacob Perreault, once he plays 10 NHL games, this counts as a year off his contract because he's 19. So that's something to in some ways keep in mind, is that even though he can be sent up and down and called up and sent back down, he can be called up, play 8 games, go back down for the rest of the year, come up, play one more game, and then not have it count a year or go 4-4. So that's just one thing that's one thing to keep in mind with Perreault, is that if that's something they're cognizant of, that could be a reason why they keep him down.
Yeah.
Having said all that, to me, the reason why he hasn't been recalled yet is prior to McTavish being sent back, there wasn't necessarily a spot for him. And so with McTavish being sent back, with Henrique being injured, and if he's injured long term, it didn't prior to Henrique getting injured, it didn't make sense to call him up because essentially Lettieri,
he was going to be in the bottom 6.
Well, it's not only that he was going to be in the bottom 6, but the guys that were being called up were essentially being called up to be healthy scratches. That's what Lettieri and Grew were. They were called up in case a guy got hurt in warms or got hurt on game day, and you don't call up Jacob Perreault for that situation. Now, to fill a top 6 role, yeah, you call him up for that because he has 15 points in 12 games. He's tearing up the AHL, and I think what better way to give him some experience than this? And if it actually is, let's just say, a small injury that's going to take Henrique out a game or two, that's actually the perfect situation to bring him up and give him a taste.
Right. I mean, just for the sake of consistency, I do want to say that I don't think there's anything wrong with calling up a prospect like Perreault, or, just a prospect in general, and have them play in the bottom 6. That's not necessarily a bad thing.
You and I just understand how the Ducks franchise works.
Well, yes, but it also just depends on who they're going to be playing with in that bottom 6. And right now,
good point.
Like Jacob Perreault does one thing specifically well. He shoots the puck a lot and he scores goals, and we love him for that. He is a ton of fun to watch. The Michigan goal, all of that. Like, that is great stuff. But I don't see his specific player type working well on like a third line with Isaac Lundestrom and Jakob Silfverberg, for example. Like, I don't think that sets him up for success, because as much as Lundestrom has played well this season, as much as Silfverberg has been solid when he's been healthy, like those are north-south players. Lundestrom can carry the puck. He's looked good at times handling the puck, but he's just not going to distribute the way that you would like with a guy with Perreault. And then let's just not even talk about the fourth line. Like Jacob Perreault with Derek Grant, and Sam Carrick's numbers are good this season.
Actually not an awful option to bump up to the top 6 even.
I think we need to start giving Sam Carrick more praise here.
Sam Carrick with Getzlaf and Terry isn't the worst option.
Should Sam Carrick be our new the player that we're pushing that is actually good?
We need more of a sample so there's actually numbers backing it up.
Okay. I mean, but so far so good. The numbers are good on Carrick.
Yeah.
The point is, though, I just don't think that the Ducks' bottom 6 is a good fit for him right now. If they had more offensive options there, I would say yes. But so for me right now with Perreault, it's got to be with Zegras or Getzlaf or bust. And so that's why I just don't see it for him right now. Generally,
I also think Getzlaf and Terry are a great line to go with for him.
Yeah, it's just not a hard and fast thing where an offensive prospect cannot play in the bottom 6. It just totally depends on your personnel. And yeah, I mean, him with Getzlaf and Terry would be interesting.
That's perfect.
Yeah, and so that's why if Henrique is out long term, give Perreault a shot.
Yeah.
Why not? Let's see it. I mean, you're going to have to find out with him sooner or later, and he's taken a step this season in the AHL in a very good league. So let's let's just get a taste. I mean,
Yep.
you're not pot committed if it's just a few games.
Yep. And before I criticize Dallas Aikens, I want to give him some credit in this game. In the second period, when Adam Enrique got injured, what did he do? He didn't make the easy play and put Raquel
You mean the expected play?
Yeah.
From Dallas Aikens?
Put Raquel with Getzlaf and Terry, or leave him there and then put Delorier with Getzlaf and Terry, or put Delorier with Zegras and Milano. Like, doing that would have made sense. What did he do? He double shifted Zegras for most of the second period.
Yeah, put him on the wing with Getzlaf and Terry.
Yeah, and double shifted him. Like, Zegras played over 9 minutes at 5-on-5 after 2 periods, and that's as much as he played against Vancouver at 5-on-5. That's as much as he played against Washington at 5-on-5. Like, this was a far cry from the way that he had treated Zegras previously, and it was really nice to see. And now, granted, in the third period, he kind of went back to it and defaulted to
kind of though.
Kind of. He still played him.
Like, I think, like, late game is where you want to see him used more.
Yeah, because I mean, there was a timeout with 45 seconds left in the game, and they come out of the timeout with Isaac Lundestrom on the ice instead of Trevor Zegras. Like, that is actually like an awful decision.
Yes, and Dallas Aikens' late game decision making has not been the best in his Ducks tenure. But I mean, Zegras did get a bunch of shifts in the third period. Like, it's not as if he wasn't playing. So
definitely,
I'm willing to give Dallas.
There you go.
I'm willing to give Dallas a little bit of a pass on that one. Still a bad call, but Zegras got his time, so it's not. I don't know.
It's an improvement. I think in the grand scheme of things,
at least there's something that can kind of counterbalance that, as opposed to just being all bad.
I think if the options are what happened against Vancouver and what happened against against Washington, even where Zegras just didn't play that much in late game situations. Against Washington, that same thing happened. Even he played like 9 minutes at 5-on-5. I would rather take this situation where he's playing 14, 15 minutes, or I think it was like 13:50 at 5-on-5, and just it's being screwed up a little bit at the end, than playing 9 minutes and just royally screwed up. And so it's progress.
Yeah, and also look, from a long-term perspective, I know that you're probably not that upset the Ducks lost this game. So,
to be quite honest, I've stopped caring either way.
Is that a stealth tank move to put Lundestrom out there?
Are you saying that Dallas Aikens is stealth tanking?
Does he have a wire up to the front office?
Is Jeff Solomon calling him? Is that on the iPad for him?
I mean, that's pretty much the only rational explanation for that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the explanation is you want to get. No, there is. I was about to say you want to get Lundestrom out there to like see how it is, but
why?
But why? Like, in what world do we live in where 3-4 years down the line, when the Ducks are contending, Isaac Lundestrom is the guy out there trying to get you a goal in a late game situation? That's just not where it's at. I mean, Fernando Valenzuela says progress, not perfection. I mean, that's honestly pretty much exactly what this is.
That's what this is. And also, I will say this. Trevor Zegras, he did not play that well tonight.
Oh, I disagree.
He had good moments.
I disagree.
He had the great assist.
No, but
he arguably arguably gave some of that back with the penalties.
No, agreed.
I mean, you can't really dispute that, considering the Predators scored on one of the penalties.
I don't dispute. Sorry, let me rephrase this. I don't dispute that the penalties are an actual issue from this game.
Like, if it was any other player who took those penalties and it resulted in goals against, we would be critical of them. I think that tonight, I feel like tonight he was trying a little too hard to be in the mix.
But he was at 5-on-5, by the way, 75.69 expected goals for percentage.
Yes, and I acknowledge that, and that's what I said. Like, he was creating chances. Got the assist, got Raquel on the board. Like, he did good things. He was one of their better players offensively. But defensively, this was, I guess maybe that's how I should frame it. Like, defensively, without the puck, this was one of his rougher games, I would say.
I disagree. I think I think you can make the argument.
Fine.
I think you can make the argument for sure about penalties. I think penalties are for sure an issue.
I mean, that's what I'm lumping in here.
Yeah, but I think if you're looking at defensive chances against while on the ice, 0.22 expected goals against, like, that's minimal in terms of that. On the ice for, let me see real quick, on the ice for, granted, 12.2, this is all score and venue adjusted, shot attempts against, but they were all, or no, sorry, that's Lundstrom. 6.87 shot attempts against to 11.664. So really just not that many shot attempts against while he's on the ice for like six shot attempts against in 12 minutes of ice time, or 13.7 minutes of ice time. That's
like I'm not saying
low.
he was terrible. I just don't think this was one of his like better all around games. Like he was very good offensively, very good.
I think
but
this
like,
was one of his better games, but he needs to stop taking dumb penalties.
In a single game, like penalties matter a lot.
I'm not disagreeing. I also think that that's something that's easily cleaned up. If he doesn't have the 2 penalties in this game, does your opinion change?
Oh yeah, then absolutely. Like the penalties are part of the story. Like
Agreed.
they are part of.
I'm
what
just saying
happened.
if you're evaluating his game and trying to say how he played in this game, I think simply ignoring penalties.
Well, yeah, if you ignore things that happened that affected the game and only focus on other things that also happened and affected the game, then yeah, sure.
Well, I'm trying to evaluate the way he played at 5-on-5 and project that long term.
If you're just totally throwing out penalties, then yeah, he had an awesome game. Like no doubt. I think that he had some defensive lapses.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
Well, okay, I will say this though. The first, what was it? The first goal against? Yeah, it was the first goal against. Like his back-checking effort,
not great.
I was not too pleased with that. I thought that he just stopped moving his feet. Like he just stopped skating back, and it was like his controller kind of died on the way back. And then the penalties, and then there was one. Oh, and then that turnover he had skating up the ice. I mean, I'm not as up in arms about that as the commentary
honestly,
team is.
I don't mind that one because at least he's trying something. Like maybe you don't try that.
What it felt with Trevor Zegras in this game is that he was just everywhere. Like, for good or for bad, he was just, like, everywhere in this game.
Which is making an impact on the game.
And you saw his reactions to, like, his penalties. Like, he was up in arms at the I think it was the second penalty. Like, he was just furious. And it's just funny because it's like, that was definitely a penalty. Like, no question. The trip was a trip. But, yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I'm being a little too harsh. I think maybe I keep a higher bar for him, but he was still extremely impactful, and I will not deny that.
I mean, 0.68 expected goals for to 0.22 against. By the way,
I also
Sonny Milano.
Oh, yeah,
0.05 expected goals against when he was on the ice.
Well, this is the thing, and this is something we haven't talked about yet, is Ricardo being back in the lineup.
True. Actually, yeah, we probably should talk about that a little bit, seeing as now we're over an hour in.
Ricardo Kell gets a centering pass from Zegras and just puts it perfectly inside the right post. I mean, off of one leg, like it was not an ideal shot for Ricardo Kell, despite being in the slot. Like he was kind of off balance,
moving away from wobbly. The net.
Yeah, and he just wrists it perfectly into the net. Like it was just an elite shot. And I mean, look, his presence on that line, you saw it in spurts in this game. It's going to make a huge difference moving forward.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited, especially if they don't play a team. I'll give Nashville credit here. Nashville played a really solid defensive game in a way to stop the Ducks in transition. I feel like if the Ducks end up playing a team that's a bit more open, which to be honest, Colorado honestly is that. Colorado can generate chances.
Yes,
well,
we saw it last year.
But yeah, Colorado is pretty open. So I feel like the Colorado game is going to be a lot of fun to watch, especially with Brickell, with Zegras and Milano.
I think Terry gets back on the board. Against his hometown
doesn't Terry
team.
Love scoring against the Avs? I feel like he does. Maybe I'm making up this
He does.
narrative.
I mean, last year he had the highlight reel goal last year.
That's right. He scored in the Wild Wing reverse retro.
Yeah, and also the Ducks were wearing their third jersey on the road.
No, it was
and
the Wild Wing
as
jersey.
well. So he got one with the third jersey as well.
Oh, maybe.
I'm not misremembering this because I've seen this highlight like a million times, but. The point is that Ricardo Kell returned, and I guess what were your impressions of him?
He looked very good.
Of Raquel.
He looked very good. There were a couple plays.
Like himself.
Yeah, there were a couple plays where he ended up being the guy that got double shifted and being put out there with I think he was out there with Lundstrom and Silverberg at one point, and you could just see how much more offensive talent he has than those two, and that's not necessarily meant to be a knock on them. But in the offensive zone, he just has the puck on his stick, and it's just like. I feel like we may have forgotten because the Ducks went on the 8-game winning streak without him and the process started to improve that I feel like people forgot just how good Ricardo Raquel was or is.
Well, that's the thing that kind of underscored the winning streak for me is the fact that they were missing Ricardo Kell.
Yeah.
That they were playing that well, winning all these games without a guy who is a difference maker, like you're just saying. And yeah, I think that, tonight showed that how much of a difference maker he can be. And we're going to see that moving forward, how much of a difference this guy makes, because you got to think about, again, I feel almost bad harping on Nick Deslauriers this much. It's not really his fault that the coaching staff is choosing to put him in that position.
Yep. Agreed.
But the gap between Nick Deslauriers and Ricardo Kell in offensive ability, it's a very, very big gap. And so to put a guy like him on that line with Milano and Zegras, you see what they can do just between those two, just between their own playmaking. And now you have another guy who can keep up, who has, I would say, the best shot on that line. That's going to open things up quite a bit. And it's also going to make it so that the Ducks don't have to rely on the Getzlaf and Terry combo quite as much, because that's another big thing that they probably want to get away from a bit.
Yep, and I think if you're looking at a long-term value perspective for Ricardo Kell, I think playing with Trevor Zegras is the right decision, especially with Trevor Zegras starting to break out. I mean, if these types of games can happen, I mean, this just helps Ricardo Kell's trade value, to be honest. And so from that perspective of long-term planning for this franchise, and also not only that, and I know some people will say, why can't you talk about him without discussing trade value? Sorry, Bonnie. But I think from the perspective of, from Raquel's perspective, this is also great for him because this is a big season for him. I don't think we've talked about it enough, where this is the big contract for Lindholm, for Raquel, for Manson. These are the deals where they're going to try to make essentially enough money for the rest of their lives. That is what this contract is. And so if you're looking at this from essentially being a fan of Ricardo Kell and wanting him to be set, wanting him to be happy for the rest of his life, him being in this position is fantastic for him to be able to get paid as what he's worth, or what he's worth based upon how the NHL is. So I'm happy for him that this is happening, because I hope he can score a bunch of points and get paid, because he seems like a really good dude.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he loves dogs. We know that for sure.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Don't say we don't like Ricardo Kell, Bonnie.
Is there anything you want to touch on, or should we start diving into some questions?
I think we should start diving into some questions. So I think we got some on Twitter, but it happened a while ago, so my apologies. People mention me for questions for the pod, and it's days ago, and it's hard for me to find. If you want to ask a question on Twitter, the best way, honestly, to do it, my DMs are open. Shoot me a DM. It's much easier for me to go back and look at my DMs than for me to look at my mentions. So,
wow, Jake just kind of flexing a little bit here.
Was that a flex?
That his notifications are so crowded that just DM him.
I mean, they are.
But yes,
they generally actually are. They've started going that way. But yes. So let's get into some questions from Twitch. But for those of you on YouTube, yes, youtube.com/crashthepond. Go subscribe to us there. It's a good time. You can watch the video version of the show. Obviously all your podcast services, but go to Twitch, twitch.tv/crashthepond. You can, help support the show. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime gaming sub each and every month. You do have to hit that subscribe button after 30 days. I believe you can actually do it for multiple months in a row now. That's something new. But you can be just like ODog81, who resubbed for 9 months in a row, saying Raquel picked up where he left off. And I believe our good friend was before we canceled the stream and then brought it back up. I believe Lewis also resubbed. So thank you to all of you. You can also follow us here, and if you follow us on Twitch, you get notified when the stream goes live. So throw in your question.
When we do Halo streams?
Yes, we did Halo streams, and you will get notified when those go live. Maybe we'll do a Warzone stream again. Maybe we can get a glorious clip like was brought to my attention again by Green Bastard, that of Felix saying I'm coming in hot and then doesn't pull a shoot. Very great clip. One of my favorite of all time, honestly, from stuff that we've done. But let's get into some questions. Throw in your question in the Twitch chat. We'll get to them. Saying, Dalton Keys said, question, with the assistant coaches coming in and having success, how much responsibility do you think Eakins has? Like, what is he in charge of?
Well, I think that despite the fact that they have these assistant coaches, he's still the one that has the final say on everything. He is the head coach. He's still the one that his word is the final decision maker. And so I think that he is still in charge of the line combinations. I still think he's in charge of who goes out at different points in the game. I still think he's the main voice on the team. Dallas Eakins is still very much in charge, despite the fact that, yes, and I think smartly he has given a lot of credit to his assistants, but make no mistake, the head coach is still the head coach here.
Yep, and I agree with that completely. And I mean, you and I have been some of the most critical people of Dallas Eakins, and I think that if we're going to be critical when he's making poor decisions, I think we also have to give him credit, and the process has improved, and he deserves credit for that.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. Like, I guess just to that question, if you want to look at how the Ducks have succeeded this season, part of that is some of the good decisions that Eakins has made, like Getzlaf Terry, Drysdale Lindholm. Like, there's a few things that he's really keyed in on that have really worked. And so we do have to give him credit for that.
Yep. ODog81 says, question, if all the Ducks players were healthy right now, what are your optimal lines, including power play?
Ooh, okay. Ooh, this is tough. I'm going to have to pull up the old cap friendly.
I think Henrique Getzlaf Terry has to be a
still
thing.
A lock.
I honestly think the top 6 from tonight's game is the top 6 that I would do.
I think that the only big difference is really, so I think the third line is probably Jones, Lundestrom, Silverberg.
Well, I guess we're forgetting Comtois. So I guess where does Comtois fit?
Ooh, that is a juicy question.
I mean, I would honestly maybe do this. I like Henrique with Getzlaf and Terry, but I would honestly give Comtois another shot there and do Comtois, Getzlaf, Terry when Comtois healthy. Do Raquel, Zegras, Milano. Then go Henrique, Lundestrom, Silverberg, Jones,
Carrick,
Steele, I guess.
Sure.
Like, I think that's actually not a that's actually a pretty solid enough. Like, especially the top 9. The top 9's actually pretty good.
Well, I think that the thing with Comtois is that you really want to have him on a line where his scoring ability will be optimized. And if he's on a third line with Lundestrom and Silverberg, it's similar to what I was saying earlier about Perreault. It's just not going to be. And so getting him on a line with Getzlaf and Terry or Zegras and Milano, like, that's just going to put him in a better spot and hopefully insulate him some defensively. So, yeah, I think that'd be a really that'd be a solid a forward unit.
Yeah,
those 4 lines are solid.
With where the development has gone for some of these players, that's a legitimate forward unit for in an NHL team. Like, that is not that's developed into a good group. Like, which is not something we would have said a couple months ago.
Because even that fourth line, it's not terrible. Like, it's still a fourth line. It's still not like your best players in the team.
It's a good fourth line.
It's not just a total anchor like it was last year.
Yeah.
like comparing everything to last year always helps.
And the DI would leave the same.
Yeah. So defense. Well, actually, so this is something I want to ask you.
Okay.
Josh Mahura and Kevin Shattenkirk just don't work together.
I would probably do Benoit there overall, but I mean, Benoit's been in and out.
But even the Benoit and Shattenkirk pairing is not good this season. Like it's better. It's better.
What else are you gonna do?
I mean, I think there's a card to play, which is Benoit and Mahura. Just give that a try.
Play Benoit on the right side. I mean, you could.
The thing with Shattenkirk is that I do think that, look, he's got some offensive ability. He's picked up the points. But his two-way game has really taken a step back this season.
What's funny
he's been poor.
What's funny is last season he was actually legitimately good, and you and I
didn't have the
defended
points.
him.
Yeah, didn't have the points, but we defended him. This season's the opposite. Everyone's giving credit because he has the points, but when he's out there, the Ducks are just getting killed, and that is the weakness of this team right now, or a weakness of the team is the fact that their third pairing is not a value add, and just try something to see if you can get that turned around. I mean, you don't really have any options in San Diego. Hopefully I don't get killed for that comment.
I mean, you've got
Gooley,
you've got Axel Anderson.
Cody Curran. Oh, God, now I feel bad. You could call up Cody Curran. There you go. I mean, just try something. Like, it feels almost sacrilegious to scratch an actual NHLer in Shattenkirk for, these guys who are unproven, but it's just not working right now. Like, just try something. See if just mix it up.
Austin Price is saying,
yeah.
why not Fowler with Jamie? I would be interested to see that.
I mean, I think that top 4 is interchangeable. Like, you could mix it up and it would still work. But it's working right now, so there's not like this big. There's just no reason to change it, I guess.
Yeah. By the way, power plays. I think power plays. I think the first unit tonight's pretty optimal.
Look good. Good and is optimal.
I think the second unit I would do, what would it be? It would be Fowler, Terry. I wouldn't do Shattenkirk out there anymore.
Well,
actually.
I would put Terry on the first unit.
And who would you take off? Milano?
Well, here's the thing I would do that would be different is I would just not really care about the second unit. Just play the first unit almost the entire 2 minutes.
Who would you take off the first unit for Terry?
Probably Milano.
Okay.
Because as much as I like Milano, I feel like he might be a better 5-on-5 player than power play guy.
The only thing that I noticed with Milano is he was being used in the net front presence, and I don't necessarily think that's where you want Terry, but you could have Raquel go there if you need it.
Yeah, or you could just have a power play where you don't necessarily
need a net
have
front presence.
A true net front guy.
That's true.
Yeah, it's not a requirement.
Yeah.
I feel like the Ducks have really tried to have this kind of even spread between their 2 units in terms of ice time, and I think they should go away from that a little bit. They have a top unit that's clearly has all of the talent. Just play them the most and worry about it later.
Yep. All right, so Lewis X209, this is not a question. It's not even something he meant to be said, but I figured I would say. He said, shout out to the new food channel on the Discord, which you created.
Yes.
As I was on a conference call today, I had a bunch of notifications. You wanted chaos.
Yes. Well, okay, so the reason this happened is because in our Hockey Talk channel, it just was getting out of hand, as it usually does, about food. And Hey Yo D-Flow made the suggestion of, well, let's create a food channel.
The only time that I ever see several people are typing is either if there's like a game or it's food. It's one of those two.
Oh, God.
So there's that. So we'll talk more about the Patreon in a bit. But Raquel's Goatee said, do you think Sonny Milano can play himself into the Ducks' long-term plans? I think he has.
I think he has, yes. I think so. It's not just like the production. He looks good out there. He's making things happen. I love his instinct for just get the puck into the middle of the ice. Like, he's always looking to center the puck, and that is a really great trait when you're playing with guys like Zegras and Raquel. So, yeah, I think he has. I think he was always in that spot, but injuries and whatnot happened. So, yes, I think that is where things are trending.
Chris Kindred, reading my mind from kind of a point I made earlier. Seeing Lindholm on the power play and Deloria in the top 6, do you believe that these moves are made to increase their trade value? And if so, would you rather the Ducks put their pending UFAs in favorable positions to increase their trade value, or just let the kids play in these spots? It's an interesting question.
It's tough. I think you can make a case either way. Like, you could say, well, getting those pending UFAs in better spots gets you a better return, and that better return is going to help the younger players long term. Or you could say, well, it doesn't really matter if those guys are in good spots. You would just rather see the kids in those positions. So I could kind of see it either way. But I just think that the problem with a Deloria in that spot, for example, is that
he's not going to play in that role when he gets traded.
Exactly. It just doesn't work. Like, it's too out of character. Same thing with Lindholm. Like, it's got to be a reasonable step up in usage. It can't just be something that's so out of whack. So I guess if I had to pick a side on that, I would say just let the kids play in those spots.
Yep. And then we got this question from the Honey Badger, longtime listener of the show. There's a couple of these names that end up popping up where I'm like, these names go back to when we were on Mixlr.
You've been reading these off for a while.
Yeah, Honey Badger's one that goes back to Mixlr. And so he said, can we use a time machine on Zellweger so he can play for us right now?
Okay, well, I'll answer the question, but we have an update on Henrique. So,
okay.
Can we use a time machine? Yeah, I mean, he would probably help them right now. But I do want to see them sort out that third pairing, though. Like, I feel like there is something to be had there.
So Olin Zellweger, just for everyone out there, has 15 points in 14 games.
He's playing amazingly.
Yeah.
But that's where he should be right now. Like, I don't know how he would do in the NHL right now.
He's barely 18.
Yeah. So here's the update from Eric Stevens. Ducks expecting to be without Adam Henrique for their next game at Colorado on Wednesday. Hearing from multiple sources that Henrique has a dislocated pinky finger and will fly back to Orange County. He'll be evaluated again, so it isn't known right now how long he could be sidelined, and that's it. So, I mean, there's something about, like, he didn't take a shot after the second period. But the point is, dislocated pinky. I've never dislocated a finger.
At least one game.
He's out a game. I feel like that doesn't sound that bad. Like, I feel like if it was the playoffs, he'd be playing through that.
Yeah, you put a stint on it, or you tape two fingers together.
Yeah, so I feel like this might not be long term, depending how they want to play it.
Which may be the perfect reason to call up Jacob Perreault.
Well, yeah, because now you know for sure that you're not going to have to get anywhere near the 9 games, or I guess 10 games. So, yeah, maybe that's the case to bring up Perreault.
I mean, honestly, Colorado is a perfect opportunity because Colorado, for as good as they are offensively and good just overall, they do allow chances.
And they've also not been that good this season.
Oh, this season, no. But they have been better of late because they've started getting their guys back. They've had a lot of guys hurt to start the year.
Yeah. So maybe this is the time to do it. I mean, they should just probably do it anyway.
By the way, want to give a shout-out. Raquel's Goatee resub for 13 months saying Raquel's 30 goals incoming. So want to give him a shout-out.
Have you ever dislocated a finger?
No. I've never dislocated anything or broken any bones. I've been lucky.
Same. I've never been stung by a bee.
Oh, I've been stung by a bee. First time I ever got stung by a bee was like in 2nd grade, and it stung my cheek. That sucked.
Ooh. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
vividly remember it. It was miserable.
Oh God, that sounds terrible.
Yeah, it was like 2nd grade. It sucked. Dalton Keys says, question, who makes the Ducks roster sooner, Zellweger or Pastujov?
I'm going to go, actually, I'm going to go Pastujov just because Zellweger's.
Well, it's also
Zellweger's. There's a ton of runway still for him to develop, whereas Pastujov is older.
Zellweger's younger, Pastujov's older, even though they're the same draft. Zellweger's very young for this draft. Pastujov, I believe, I need to look into this in depth, but I believe he's eligible for the AHL next year. Because he was not actually playing in the OHL prior to this year. So at the time of being drafted, he was not an OHL player, which is why he was also going to go to the NCAA. And so because of that, he is actually not, or the CHL, NHL transfer agreements do not apply to him. So he is actually AHL eligible next year. So I kind of would expect him to be there next year, especially if he torches the CHL. I think that might be the next likely
which he's doing.
Yeah. That might be the next likely destination. I mean, let me look it up right now because I believe I want to get his numbers correct because he is destroying the OHL. And now, granted, we've obviously seen in recent history, aka Sam Steele, guys that torched juniors after their draft season. But
so yeah, was Sam Steele draft plus 2?
No, it was draft plus 1.
Or was it draft plus?
Draft plus 2 was not as good as draft plus 1. Draft plus 1 was better. Pastujov has 31 points in 18 games.
Well, the thing with Pastujov is that he is lighting it up, and he's scoring kind of as expected.
He's creating the goals for himself,
as expected. But the thing is, like, the weakness is still the skating, and that probably hasn't completely changed in the small amount of time he's been down there.
But I think he's proving at a higher level he's able to kind of bypass the skating and be able to still create chances and create goals for himself by scoring 18 goals. Because we talked about this a little bit with Sam Steele with the fact of, is that a junior goal or is that a goal that's translatable? And I think one thing that's translatable is being able to find the space to create your own shot and being able to get that shot off. And I think that's one thing Pastujov's been able to do.
God, seeing that 31 and 18 is just, he has 18 goals and it's just gross. Like, how?
Yeah, it's insane how he's producing. And I mean, he also could end up being a complete steal in the 3rd round.
I mean, I think at a bare minimum, a guy this productive is going to play in the NHL. Like, you don't know how good he's going to be, but he's going to play.
So Sam Steele, by the way, in his draft plus 1 year, 131 points in 66 games. So a little bit of a cautionary tale there to buy too much into this.
Because if we had been doing this podcast at that time, would we have been saying the same thing? Right?
100, we definitely would have.
And I guess my statement would still hold because Sam Steele is an NHLer. That is
true.
An awesome one.
Like that. I mean, that's the thing is Sam Steele is an NHLer. That's better than some people from that draft.
Also, I think it's important to note though that Sam Steele was a first-round pick and Passagov was a third-round pick. So the bar is a little different for both these guys in terms of expectations.
True.
So I don't know. I mean, I think the thing with Passagov is he probably shouldn't have been a third-round pick.
Yeah, he should have been a first-round pick.
How productive he was. Yeah, so we'll see. I do want to pump the brakes on that just slightly because, like you just brought up with Sam Steele,
I will be very curious when Byron Bader updates his hockey prospecting model in December.
Oh, I mean, he's going to be right up there. I guarantee
he's going to be up there. I'm curious where Zellweger's at. I'm curious where Jacob Perreault is going to end up at.
Well, yeah, because Perreault is making up for lost time last year. He is going off.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think that's all we've got for today.
Yep, that is it.
Okay, well, here, I'm going to give you, before we head out, I'm going to give you a few different ways that you can support our show. So the number one way that you can support us is to check out our Patreon page. So patreon.com/crashthepond. Now, you have 3 tiers of monthly pledges here. The first tier is just $1 a month. If you pledge us $1 a month, you will get access to our patrons-only Discord chat, which has become the best Ducks community on the internet. There, I said it. It's a hot take, but it is the correct take. We've got great people in there, people that are just diehard Ducks fans that are there to just talk about the games. There's no bad blood. There's no arguing. It's just a great place to be. And that's not, I mean, like, for example, Twitter. It's not what you're going to get on Twitter for the most part. Everyone's just there to have a good time. We have, like we were just talking about earlier, we have a new channel on Discord there, the food channel. So if you have some hot takes about food, like our good buddy Lewis, who, I mean, the amount of just insane takes he was putting out today, I just couldn't even keep up, to be honest. Just so bad.
Also, real quick, there's a gaming channel in there, which Felix and I have used to find people to play with us as we're playing Halo.
So if you're a gamer, if you're someone who plays, like we are playing Halo now because it just came out. So yeah, you can hop in with us, get in on some games, and our good buddy JC who carries us a bit.
Yeah, we had Nate from Discord jumping with us yesterday, so good time.
Yeah, exactly. So that's all just for $1 a month, and honestly, it does still go a long way, and I think you will get a kick out of it, especially as the games are happening, jumping in and chatting with everyone. Now, for $5 a month, you get access to that chat, but you also get access to 2 bonus episodes. So we do 4 regular shows a month, but on these 2 bonus shows, we get more in-depth on different Ducks topics, league-wide. So we'll do league-wide rankings, position rankings, picking our awards winners. And also, as a patron, we have a channel in the Discord that is just for patron suggestions, so you can throw in your own recommendations of what you want us to talk about, and we will get to it.
We should, by the way, for the third, because this month we're doing 3. Because of only being able to do 1 because I was on vacation last month. We should do a completely off-topic episode.
We might. We'll see. We'll see what comes our way. Those episodes are a lot more unfiltered. They can also be off-topic. So if you just kind of want a magic box here, you don't know what's going to happen, well, then I would recommend the bonus episodes. Now, for $15 a month, you get access to everything I just described. You also get access to 2 watch-alongs a month. So this is where we do a live feed of a Ducks game. So as you're watching the game on your own TV, monitor, whatever, you're watching with us. You get our live commentary. You get a private YouTube chat where you can throw in whatever you want, comments, questions, what have you. Give you a different look as we're doing these breakdowns. Give you more stats on the fly, which is kind of our brand at this point. And just give you a different feel than what you might usually get from a traditional hockey broadcast. So that's all of that is at patreon.com/crashthepond. Now, another way that you can support us, which is totally free to you, is you can search us on Apple Podcasts and you can leave us a rating and a review. This goes really far in supporting the show. It helps us climb those rankings. And also, we just love to hear from you guys. And thankfully, this week, Jake, we have 3 new reviews.
Wait, we have 3?
To read out. Well, there's one that I don't know if we read last week.
The one
I'm lumping it in.
The short but sweet one?
I think we actually did read it.
We
now
did.
That I'm
we did.
remembering.
You can read it again. You
Okay.
know, give him credit twice. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing wrong with that. So we've got 3 new reviews. And so, yeah, if you leave us a rating and a review, we will read it on the show. So this one from D-Way last week, I already read it, but said good podcast, 5 stars. Nothing wrong with that. Short and sweet. Get right to the point. Now, this one from Tenacious G85. This is from Great Britain. So awesome to hear that people are listening across the pond, helping us crash the pond on this side of things. Being a Ducks fan from Scotland, it can be difficult not to feel out of touch. This podcast keeps me up to date and feel connected with great content. Absolutely love the use of stats and data to analyze the performance of player and team and give great views on all things Ducks. From, and I'm obviously paraphrasing, just stop playing Grant to let Zegers play and who knows what game Dallas Aikens watches. It is great to sit back and enjoy hearing the pod's views. Obviously here for the Ducks content, which is top notch, but could not leave without saying that Felix and Jake managed to keep me entertained through many a work hard journey with bonus material such as, this list is certainly not exhaustive, Felix's bad takes on food.
There you go.
Some I've never, it just has to be mentioned. What is it with these people? Some I've never heard of in Scotland. Yeah, I'm imagining there's no In-N-Outs in Scotland or Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Jake's inexplicable love of Spurs. I love that he censored out the U in Spurs.
He didn't want to pop up in searches. I love
Felix
it.
is hating.
I love it.
Felix is hating on all things Sweden. How did that become a narrative? I don't understand that one. Like, I've seen other people say this. I don't understand it. Jake's love of wrestling, the beer league, and last but certainly not least, Salem Watch. Keep up the great work. Hashtag the Ducks are very good.
You buried lead. You buried the lead that the top of it was hashtag Crash the Pond is very good.
Yeah, that one of my favorite reviews of all time. This is an all timer.
Yeah, definitely an all timer right there.
Hitting all the right notes. And then the last one here from Pizzy 1084, also out of Great Britain. Always a great listen as the title, 5 stars. Not always easy keeping up to date with all things Ducks being in the UK. The guys cover pretty much everything in an easy to listen way. Great weekly listen for those who don't follow the Ducks. It's always worth tuning in to hear them discuss views on wrestling and food as a side issue. So thank you very much, guys.
I feel like we have a brand.
I think our brand is mostly Ducks, like 90% Ducks, and then 5%. Well, actually, let's go 9% food, and then 1% wrestling.
Can I give the 1% wrestling right now?
Oh God!
Didn't watch Survivor Series yesterday, but looked like it was trash.
I will say this: the people that bring up the wrestling clearly listen to the entire episode because you have to get to the end.
It's always in the questions.
Sometimes you bring it up in the very beginning, like you did on the last show, which I apologize to everyone who had to deal with that.
Wait, when did I do that?
So, no, 2 shows ago.
Yeah, because I made it. I have returned, just like The Rock.
Yes, exactly. But that was a wrestling reference, which not everyone is here for. So I had to point it out. I had to call it out.
A Rock reference is like not a real wrestling reference, though. Everyone knows who The Rock is. Come on.
It's a casual reference.
Yeah, it's a casual reference.
Okay. Well, anyway, thanks so much, guys, for the kind words. These kind of reviews are honestly great motivators for us. We just love hearing from you guys. And we're glad that you enjoy what we are doing here. Like that our quirky, crazy sense of humor plus our analysis, that you enjoy that someone else enjoys that. It's always great to know. And that'll keep us moving forward. Now, a couple other ways you can support us. Find us on Spotify. Yes, we're also there. So if you're not an Apple person, totally fine. And make sure that you're following us on there. Subscribe. Find us on YouTube, youtube.com/crashthepond. Subscribe there and also turn on your notifications. Love reading the YouTube comments. Jake will respond to all of them. I will read them and be amused by them, but Jake will be the one responding.
I don't respond to all of them. I respond to like half.
Okay. Well, hey, still. So that's all at youtube.com/crashthepond. A couple other ways you can support us. Go to our website, crashthepond.com, and check out crashthepond.com/shop. Yeah, we got an order the other day for a hoodie, and I don't have the name in front of me, but shout out to you, person who ordered a hoodie. Oh, Jake's gonna pull it up.
I'm trying to get there very quickly. Let me see.
I think I have it in my email because we both get emails on that.
Let's see, Sarah. Not gonna say her last name.
Shout out. Yeah, let's just read her mailing address here. Shout out to Sarah for ordering a hoodie. We appreciate you. that you are willing to rock our logo, our beautiful logo of Crash the Vine.
Yeah, and if you
Really-
want to rep the podcast that you love at a Ducks game, you can do that now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. The rule is if you buy one, you have to wear it at a game, though. Sorry, those are the rules.
Yeah, Nick. Nick, if you ever listen to this, I'm looking at you.
If you have our apparel, you must wear it at a game. Like, you can take it off at intermission, but you got to at least get it out there a little bit. Anyway, so that's all at crashspawn.com/shop. We got t-shirts, hoodies. Hey, it's getting a little cooler, although right now it's hot as hell because of the stupid Santa Ana winds. But that will go away at some point, and as it gets colder, or if you don't live here in Southern California, if you're over in Scotland, it's probably cold as hell, I would imagine. So grab a hoodie. I mean, it probably won't be enough to fully protect you, but good materials.
And I'm going to end the
I think
podcast. This is how we're ending the podcast. This is how it's ending. Our good friend
Yes.
CJ is in Hawaii and just tweeted out, if you have the ability to watch 10 to 12 feet manta rays do flips literally inches below you at night on the Big Island, you have to do it. One of the best experiences I've had in my life. There you go, folks.
I don't even know what to make of that. If you have the ability to watch 10 to 12 foot manta rays do flips literally inches below you at night on the Big Island, you have to do it. Okay. I'm still trying to understand what is actually happening here. I'm
CJ's
trying to
in
like
Hawaii.
visualize this.
Yeah, let's just end it there.
CJ's Hawaii is in Hawaii and under the influence.
CJ's living
Like,
the
let's
life.
just
CJ's
let's just
living
call
the
it what
life.
it is. CJ's not sober. Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Have a great week. Thanks, guys.
Bye.